welcome to our listeners. I'm Erin Hutchins. I'm one of the co-founders of ACT Leadership, and joining me here today in this chat that we're having about our new exciting program is Jeanine Mancusi and Michelle Goss from Coaching Transformation.
Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin.
A little bit about myself and ACT. We are known for our leadership and performance coaching certification in partnership with Brown University and helping leaders and individuals to become more coach-like. We have delivered a lot of coach training within organizations as well as team coaching. And we really wanted to give coaches some more skills and concepts to really deepen their knowledge when they're working with their one-on-one clients. So Mike and I, Mike Hutchins is the other co-founder, called up Jeanine and Michelle to see if they could help us with that. So here we are. So I'd like to just have Jeanine and Michelle for you just to introduce yourself, and then we'll let our audience know what we're doing today.
Okay. Well, I'm Jeanine Mancusi, and I've been coaching since 1994. I've also been a coach trainer since 1997, and I served in a coaching organization as a supervisor and examiner and co-wrote a lot of the certification materials for that organization. So one of the things that I'll say is I'm passionate about coaching. I've been coaching since 1994, and I love coaches and I love supporting coaches. So Michelle and I partnered together and formed a company called Coaching Transformation, where we offer advanced coaching skills to bring our clients into substance and depth and really work towards transforming their personal lives as well as their work environments. I think that's enough for now. Michelle.
Yes. Thanks, Jeanine. I'm Michelle Goss. And I'll say a little bit about my background where the first 15 years of my career, I worked in organizations. I worked in corporate HR, and I would coach, which had a different meaning at the time. It usually meant try to make someone be a way that they weren't. That's how we used coaching back in the early 90s and the mid 90s. And then I actually got to coach myself while I was an executive in an organization. And it made a huge difference, like night and day to me personally. And so when I left the corporate world, I was so committed to being a coach because I knew personally what a difference it made. So I started real coaching at around 1998 and then started coaching other coaches in about 2001. And like Jeanine, I love working with coaches. There's some kind of simpatico we have a shared mission about making life better, easier, more joyful, more full and rich and real for people. And it's a joy to work with coaches. So this is like best of the best.
Thanks, Michelle and Jeanine. And really the purpose of this conversation today is just to talk a little bit more about how we formed this next level coaching program and why we're doing this, and talk a little bit about the program. So this is going to be very informal, and so we hope that you find this useful. I just wanted to start out by saying that I think Michelle and Jeanine, you're so well known and masterful at training other coaches, like you said. And I know for me, I got to a point in my own coaching, I did my coaching certification maybe 11 or 12 years ago, and noticed that I really need more. I want more, particularly having worked with clients, and their complex issues. And also being conscious, like, am I crossing the line into therapy here? Because the deeper we go, and so I wanted some guidance, and I wasn't really sure where to go as far as what would really help me in my development as a coach. And so that's when I looked to Jeanine and Michelle and said, well, what are you offering around this? And when I talked to them, I just thought, oh, they have some really neat concepts that are easy to apply, that are meaningful, and help the client really connect to the true essence of themselves. And so I got really excited after I talked to them, and then the conversation turned into, well, I think our students would really love this as well. And, not just only students, but I think coaches this is so needed out in the coaching community. So that's how our conversation got started. And then we ended up creating this next level coaching skills program, in which we're going to talk about on this call.
Erin, I love hearing your story about how you were reaching for something more for yourself, because that's part of my story on how I started to develop this curriculum. Is I was coaching for a long time. I had a reputation in my coaching community as the kick butt coach, which is so weird to me now. But the fellow faculty that I was working with, when they met students who said, I really need someone to kick my butt to get it, I want somebody fierce, and so they were referring me all these clients who said, I want you to hold my feet to the fire. I want you to kick my butt to the curb. I want you to, and I was doing that, but it was really unsatisfying. It started to feel like I was just performing some weird thing that wasn't really me. And while I can be fierce, I feel that I'm much more fierce emotionally and authentically, really championing people to be emotionally present and to be authentic. And so that meant I had to do that too. So I started to look for other training and started trying things and got really, really excited about what was working. And I'm one of these people, if I like a movie, everybody has to know. If I like the certain short ribs at a restaurant, everybody has to know. So it's like, oh, I was finding these techniques. Well, coaches have to know. They absolutely have to know. So similarly, I think our passion was ignited in the same way. I wanted to change. I was getting bored and frustrated and feeling like I'm not doing anyone a service by trying to get all puff up my chest and be very macho in a way about, yeah, you can do, I can't even imitate it. It's too weird. So I just love hearing that story. And I'm very pleased with the program that we've co-developed with you and Mike about how it helps people go deeper, helps them become more authentic in themselves, and shows them how they can birth the authenticity and the empathy and the emotional depth and range with their clients, just to name a few things.
Yeah. I would like to add to that because I have a similar story. I think many coaches, if you've coached for 5 years or more, you learn the basics and you get good at the basics. And then there's a point, I'll speak for myself, where I started feeling like accountability is really important in coaching. And there's a way it started to devolve into accountability coaching, which is, well, yeah. And I started feeling like I was a teacher or a parent. Did you do your homework? It's like that was not satisfying for anyone, me or the clients. And one of the things that Jeanine and I believe is that boredom is an indicator that if we get bored, it's like, oh, this is a good sign because I'm wanting to change. So I can either follow that indication and follow my passion to change and find something new that's going to grow me, or I can let it kind of drag me down, and that's a whole nother story. The other thing I want to speak to is when you were talking about therapy, and this is a stand we take with flexibility. Any stand has flexibility to it, is that we really are proponents of normalizing the full range of the emotional experience of being a human. So yes, therapy is fantastic. We're fans of that, but we don't want to say, well, you got emotional stuff, go to a therapist. You can, but you can also be a human and get support. Most of us were not trained how to feel. We were taught, how do I feel my emotions and what do I do with them? And so we cover some of that in this program too. That's incredibly liberating and grounding and normalizing. And it's obviously something we care a lot about. So I'm excited to share that.
I want to speak to that for a second, because after being a coach, mentor, and a supervisor where I've been giving feedback to coaches, I think what I see is a lot of coaches touch the surface into the emotion.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you said, Michelle, it's like in this program, we're really looking at how do you help the client be with all of their emotions? And just to zone in on that word be, it's like, how does emotions get more integrated into the essence of their being, where they know that it's okay? I know for a lot of us, including myself, you know, I was really brought up to just know that there's a few emotions that are okay, and the other ones are unfamiliar or scary or not, you know, um, don't show certain emotions. And think that in what we're teaching coaches now here is to look at how do you help people just be in that emotion, let them know that it's okay in a safe environment.
Mhm.
Yes.
Create a lot of safety around that in order to fully express it and then also integrate it into their being.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I say something about that right there? Because we go into this in much more detail in our program, but just to say one of the things we do is we make distinctions, which is separate out things that have been collapsed together, concepts or ideas or belief systems that have been kind of mushed together. So we pull them apart so that we can see what's true and what's an interpretation is just not true. So with emotions, one thing that has gotten all mushed together is um, experiencing my emotions. That is my relationship with my emotions. That's really what we want to learn how to do. What got collapsed in with that is telling everybody, showing everybody, communicating everything you're feeling, no matter where you are. If you're on an airplane and you don't want to wear a mask, it's like it's a blow up. Like that's not what we're talking about. And so I love your example. Like we're all taught, don't be this way, don't have that emotion, and that gets very confusing. And so when we're growing up, how could we not be confused? But now as adults, we can pull this apart, make some distinctions, and cultivate a really healthy rapport and relationship with all of our emotions.
Yeah.
And then decide what to communicate or not.
There's so much we could say about emotions. It's an integral part of this program that we designed with Mike and Erin. And there's what we see with coaches is you can only go as far as you are willing to take yourself. So that's a big piece of what we look at, is you getting intimate with your emotional terrain, being able to make distinctions between emotions like anger and blame and hostility, all these things that get passed for anger in our culture. So there's lots to explore is what I'll say here. Otherwise, I know I could talk for 2 hours and teach a bunch of stuff is what I'm starting to feel. The other thing that I'm aware of that we talk about, because you mentioned, Erin, that you are a supervisor and trainer of coaches. And one of the things that Michelle and I have seen in our supervising of coaches is a very basic part of the coaching, which is starting any conversation, any coaching conversation. What would you like to focus on? Or what would you like to get out of the session? Or how can I support you today? Those kinds of questions at the top. The very first thing we're finding that coaches need to figure out is whose agenda is it? Whose agenda? Who's coming to the call? Because we believe that we are all multidimensional beings. And one of the things we've heard in our supervision calls, and I'm sure, Erin, you hear this too, is that we haven't been trained as coaches to the various aspects of self that can show up in the conversation. So I know early on, and occasionally still now, I will spend a good part of the call coaching who I think is the adult in the client, only to find out, oops, I'm coaching a teenager there who's running an agenda to be highly productive and seen and visible, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to know who you're coaching because only the adult will make the transformation. So there's a cast of characters we'll introduce people to in this program, and how to figure out the adult's agenda and how that's the only part of the client that will really transform and live a fulfilling life and really achieve the things they want and experience the life they want.
Yeah, and I would love for the both of you to say why that is so important, like to really help distinguish the different parts that are speaking. So from your, and I mean, I have an opinion on this, but I want to hear from both of you around like why is this so important to know as coaches?
Well, I'll take a run at it, Jeanine, and you add in. So we often use a metaphor of a bus, and all parts of self are on the bus. In the olden days, we used to try to kick off parts of self that we didn't like. Well, that doesn't work. They just hang on to the wheels or something. They're with you.
Sometimes they start driving.
Yes, exactly. And that is the point, is that you want to be clear who's driving the bus? And does this part of me have a license? Are they really equipped to drive? Do I want them to be driving this bus? For example, it could be a wounded part of myself that's got a hold of the wheel and is driving us into a ditch. And this is what we want to be listening for as coaches. Who's driving and what is their agenda? Back to what you were saying, Jeanine. Who am I talking with and what's the agenda? If I'm unaware as a coach that I'm working with a wounded part of my client that has no business driving, we're going to end up in the ditch together. It's not going to go well.
I'll add, I love that metaphor, Michelle. I'll add to that, because let's say that that you have a wounded teenager driving an agenda. Really what we're looking at is, what are they motivated by? What are they motivated by? And often it's to heal a wound. So for example, wounded teenagers in us are often wanting attention. They want to achieve to validate their very existence. They want to prove and earn something in the world that actually can't be proven or earned, but we each spend a lot of time trying to prove I'm good enough, I matter. Everyone is actually enough and everyone matters. But if we spend a lot of time coaching and having agendas and action plans and strategies to prove that I'm enough underneath everything, it's very dissatisfying to both coach and client, and actually creates a mess. It creates a mess, and it can create a mess for executives and their teams, if people are trying to prove that they're enough. So if you can see the signposts and respond to that part and help them, help the adult, the integrated adult, who should be driving the bus, see that part, it changes the whole game and changes the client's life. Can you, if you can imagine, if you knew that you were enough and there was nothing you had to do to prove or earn anything, and you showed up at work from that place, what would that change? How would you be different? How could you support, as a leader, having your team members know they were enough? How would that change the conversation? How does that change performance evaluation? I mean, to me, everything turns on a dime there. And we can go through the various aspects of self. There's also healthy aspects of the teenager to nurture. The inner teenager in us is highly idealistic and hopeful, productive, loves to work, loves to solve problems. If you can start empowering that part rather than the one who wants to prove anything, again, it can change the whole environment of a team, of your personal life.
And I think that what you're saying too, and if I'm listening, I might have this question. I'm thinking, well, how is that? This sounds a little bit like therapy, and I want to help make a distinction here, because in therapy, you might, if you're working with your therapist on a wounded part, that got wounded when you were an adolescent, at that age, you might look at that, actually what happened, what you might go back into the past and revisit that, and to help towards the healing of that. In this program, what I want to help make a distinction around is that we're giving that wounded part a voice, and looking at how is this impacting me now, in the
Yes.
present moment. So
Yeah.
then we can actually be at greater choice around, do I want to keep operating from this wounded part, or go actually operate from my integrated adult self that Jeanine's speaking to.
Yes.
And I think for me that really distinguishes coaching and therapy, especially for coaches that have been doing this for some time now, because you've probably come across situations where you're like, this feels really appropriate something has happened in the past, and I'm not exactly sure how to work with that.
Mhm.
But it feels important, and I don't want to ignore it. And I'm not equipped as a therapist to go back and actually help heal that trauma. But I do want to help them integrate more to their full, to the essence of their full being, and be at greater choice. Yeah. And so I want to just help make that distinction in this program. And I know for me as a coach, when I started to learn how to work with this concept and do it, it's extremely powerful because you are addressing that part. We're not saying you're wrong or you're bad. It just
Yes.
hasn't fully been integrated.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
still needs attention.
Yes.
We've seen
Did I say that right?
miraculous,
Or did
yes.
Yes, that's right.
And we've seen like miraculous things happen where in the moment, because like you're so right, Erin, like this wound is kind of the way we might say it is coming up for healing right now. It's not saying let's go back to when you were 15. It's like the 15-year-old here is here now saying, hey, help. And so amazing things can happen when we're willing to support the client in turning toward their own inner 15-year-old who's here right now to find out what they need that the client, the adult client, can provide. So that's how the integration happens. It's amazing.
Mhm. And I think now this is when, when you've been coaching for some time, you you will know you're ready for this concept around how to use it. We don't introduce this in the beginning, like when you're just learning to be a coach, because it is complex, right? And
Yes.
there are a lot of different parts. And so we want you to feel equipped with having, gone through a coaching certification so you have that core foundation to then be able to take it to this level of depth that we're speaking to.
Yes.
It's so true. And I'll add to that that you must have like the foundational tools of coaching, as well as um, enough awareness of your own ego agendas or things that you would want to, like, I'm going to be a great coach now. At least have awareness of that. And this program is going to help with that too. It's going to help you as a coach find more of your integrated adult self to bring to your coaching, which makes it so much more fun. Like coaching when there's nothing to prove, that you don't have to like I hear this all the time from coaches. I want to make sure that I'm valuable. I create value for this client. You don't create value. You create opportunity.
Yeah.
And safe space. But when that's out of the picture, it's way more fun and more powerful.
Yeah, the client brings the value. They find the value in the coaching. You don't have to make something happen.
Right.
While we're talking about aspects of self, I know there's an aspect of self that all of the coaches are aware of, regardless of where they get their training. It's known as the inner critic, the saboteur, the gremlin. Some people have heard it called that. So in this program, we go deeper with how to work with who we now call the distorter, the inner critic, who distorts the truth in a way that the client believes the story, that the package of lies they're selling. So we have some great tools and techniques to use with clients, and for you to go in and really start to recognize the part of us that we call the reporter, which is the healthy ego that reports facts, and then to recognize the distorter and to see the different ways that they twist the reality, the life of the client. So I'm really excited about what we've developed with you, Erin and Mike, to help clients with that inner critic.
Yeah, and I think Jeanine's just mentioning another concept that we're working with in the program, and there's a few more, and I don't know if we're going to be able to touch on all of those right now in this conversation. Anything else that feels for both of you feels important to say, that more high level about our why here, or why coaches might find this program useful?
I'll add something here. I think most coaches, and I believe this would be true for people who've worked with you and Mike, there is a magic that happens when coaches get together and learn together. So we have big plans for people in this program, and we trust that those who come together to work together, we're going to create something even better, because that's what coaches do. We get in, we learn, we're willing. I'm excited about that. Learning in community is so powerful. And then it deepens relationships and friendships, like things we can't even predict and imagine yet are waiting.
Yeah. I know, because Michelle and I have led a lot of things together. I know that we create safe, imaginative, playful space. And what I can say to everyone is, in our work with Erin and Mike, and you'll hear it, there's recorded portions to this program, you'll hear it. There's an ease in the flow of the four of us. And so I anticipate, you know, I know that the space that we've created, the four of us, is something that's going to be a gift for everyone as well. There's an ease between us. We've created safety, the four of us, with the four of us together, starting this collaborative project. And we have a lot of experience. I mean, we had to tone down all the conversation we wanted to have in the recordings. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience between the four of us. We could have gone on for hours, as we could hear. So.
And one of the things too, I wanted to mention that's coming up for me now too, is that, when we were doing the recordings, I think I asked both of you this question. I was like, well, you're really giving permission to the coaches to, in some ways, train the client
Yeah.
or have teaching moments with the client as well, because some of these concepts are not so easy to digest at first, right? So it takes a little bit of context setting with your client to say, here's what we're doing and maybe why. And that was one of the things I was really noticing when I was, when creating this program together, is that there's a lot of permission here to train your client um, around these concepts, so they have the why and they have the right context before going in and doing the work.
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, it's too confusing, I think. Why not just, and we ask permission, may I teach you something here? Or may I share something with you? But it's part of the designed alliance, I think, and designing the relationship with the clients.
Yeah.
Works well.
Yep. And so I know this is maybe what you two were maybe segueing to, I'm not sure, but I'm going to go there now. And a little bit just more about, Michelle, you're mentioning bringing coaches together. And so we're very excited to be doing that. The program is just going to go into a little bit of about the program now. The program's 3 months. And so we've set it up in a way that you come to the program, we welcome you, then you listen to some audio recordings that have been pre-recorded by the four of us. And then you would then come into a live session with Michelle and Jeanine and either Mike or myself in order to deepen the learning that has happened in the recordings. And then there is practice coaching, where we're going to get you into groups within the cohort to practice what you're learning before you then start with the next module, next session. So there's 6 of those. So we have 6 different topics that you'd be learning and then coming to the live sessions and discussing. And during the live sessions, it will be very experiential, where our intent is to do demos with you all, so you can see it in action and debrief it. And it's also an opportunity for you to ask questions about the content and application, where you get live time with both Jeanine and Michelle, or myself or Mike. Anything I missed there that feels important to say about the structure of this?
I would just add, just in case it wasn't clear, on those live calls, many times there'll be chances to practice on the live call. That's part of the experiential nature. So yes, demos, and also let's just jump in and splash around and try it out together, because that can bring more questions, and also that feeling of, oh, it takes the mystery out. When we actually try something, it doesn't look so scary and it's not so mysterious. So we're really all about wanting to give practice, building confidence, and also finding ways to make it your own.
Yes, practice with a lot of support and championing and acknowledging, not criticizing.
No clipboards allowed.
all of us have been in coach training and have had those, public practice sessions where it's like, hey, but I know the more mistakes I made, the more I learned, actually. It took me a while to appreciate that without being embarrassed, but we found that to be really helpful.
And I think that going back to what you're saying, the safety has to be there too, because you're going to be working on these concepts on yourself too, especially when you get into your coaching practice groups. And so, there is a level of vulnerability that will be present, because you're going to be working on parts of yourself. You'll be working on some of, deepening your emotional connection. And so, to really, we're wanting to create that space for all of you to be able to connect and feel free to give each other permission to go there and not get it right either. As you know, both of you are mentioning that this is really a learning lab to practice.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that the older we get, the older I get. I don't know why, but we all think that when we try something new, we should be good at it. Because I'm now 64. Because I'm 64, I should be good at this already. Well, if I never tried it, why? Why should I be good at it? That's part of the one of the selves, the critical parent that says you should know. No, this is about playing. That's one of the beauties, many beautiful things about coaches, is that as each student steps into their coach to support others, you know, it is a safe space. There's a lot of beauty and loving and caring and compassion and hopefully laughter. We think we're funny, so.
We do, we laugh. I'll also add one other thing here, that the like the bigger picture for me when I'm either working with a teaching coaches, training coaches, or a client is I'm going for more freedom, more personal authority, more love, more joy, more passion, so that it's worth any little, you know, hesitancy I may have or resistance. I'm holding that bigger picture of, I know this part right here, this step may be a little awkward. It's so worth it. Because even the willingness to take that little step gives me more freedom right there. So I'm excited for that because I'm already feeling the greater freedom, the more joy, the more sense of confidence of all of the people who will be in this program. It's like, to me, that's already real.
Yes.
We're just going to catch up with time and space into that future vision I'm holding.
The other thing that I'm getting in touch with is, again, my love for the profession of coaching. And over the years, many of my colleagues who have retired or just quite frankly got tired of coaching always say, Jeanine, how could you still work one-on-one with clients? It's been since 1994 because of the way I coach, because of the conversation. I can't imagine not doing it. I love it. I love my clients. It's just so the idea of helping coaches find longevity in this profession means a lot to me. Means a lot to me because I don't think you know, of course, everybody has free choice. If you're done, you're done. But I think a lot of people give up because they're just doing what Michelle said in the beginning, that accountability coaching. And after a while, it's like, oh, I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. So this is a way to sustain your longevity, have fun, and have deeply meaningful conversations that change people's lives. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so true.
You know, this isn't what we're not, we don't have a module on this, what I'm about to talk about, but what I have found, and I know you have too, Jeanine, the more fun coaches are having in the work, the more confidence they have, the easier it is to fill their practices. It's just like that. It's magical, but it is much easier to get clients because you're not, well, one, you're not trying to prove or get, it just happens. And the way you speak about it is much more engaging.
Right on. So I think that's a really good, I think we're at a good place right now to end this conversation, to leave people with, you know, if you have any questions or if you want more, feel free to reach out to us, to Jeanine and Michelle. We also have ongoing webinars. So check out the website, depending on when you're listening to this recording, there might be another webinar before the program starts. And this program will be starting in September of this year. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Michelle and Jeanine for just being here and showing up so authentically, and for your excitement and love of this work. I think, again, it's contagious. It's one of the reasons we wanted to partner with you, because we genuinely feel that, and we, you know, think that you do such a good job spreading that to coaches. So thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Come join us. Come join us.
Yes.